Hello everybody and welcome to this speedrunning guide for Sword of the Sea. I will be focusing on strats for the New Game Plus Any Percent category, which is my favorite. It is also the fastest category for the full game. This video will be the first in a 9-part series on how to speedrun this category. And the first video here I'll just be covering setup, and then the following videos I'll be covering each of the levels individually and all the strats within. So, for setup, let's talk settings. We start by going into gameplay, and there are a few settings that are worth considering here. Camera follow, I set this to on. You can also set this to off. It doesn't make a big difference. I find the camera to behave a little weird in Shadow Tundra specifically when I have this to off, so I set it to on, but it doesn't make a big difference. Camera sensitivity, I do set this to high. I really like having the ability to move my camera a lot in short bursts, especially in the shark level. It can be helpful. Camera shake, I set this to low. You can set it to low or high, but don't set it to off. And that's because we have to do some blind movement in the dolphin section of this game. And we basically use the camera shake from the dolphin hitting crystals and also from the dolphin landing in the sand to know exactly where the dolphin is. Motion blur, you can set this to on or off or low, but I just set it to off because I hate motion blur. And finally, persistent dot, I would recommend having this to on. And this gives us this little crosshair in the middle of the screen that we can use to calibrate our movement and do preciser setups. Alright, so before we get into the basic movement of this game, I just want to explain the New Game Plus category. Basically, we're playing with access to all of the movement abilities from the very beginning of the game. That includes this red cape that I have. You unlock this by collecting all 50 shells throughout the game, and you can toggle red cape on and off in the menu here. I recommend having red cape on at all times. It gives us access to the water rail from the very beginning of the game. So I would recommend always keeping this on. The water rail is invaluable. Another thing is chirp boosting. This is a mechanic that's fairly unknown. But basically, when holding the interact key and then releasing it on the ground, you get a small speed boost. So looking at my kilometers an hour, my speedometer, my speed goes up every single time I do one of these chirps. And one of the big muscle memory challenges of this run is to remember to always be chirp boosting, because it is completely free. It doesn't cost any resources, there's no reason to not do it basically. So getting this muscle memory down, putting chirp on a keybind that you can consistently spam is very, very useful. Okay, let's talk about some basic movement. So, when moving from just A to B, flat ground, sort of a section like this, of which there are actually fairly few, the best way of doing this is to be boosting, jumping, doing one trick, and then landing as fast as possible so we can do another boost. Basically, we're trying to minimize the time at which our boost is off cooldown and not used. So getting a lot of height might look cool, but it's actually really slow, so we want to stay close to the ground at all times. Another part of this puzzle is making sure you have enough wisps to do whatever you need. And for basic movement, that means having 2 wisps on the ground and having 1 wisp in the air, right? So we have 2 wisps on the ground, we boost, we go to 1 wisp, we do a trick, and then we land. And we gain a wisp and we lose a wisp. And every time we do this. And that's going to be a consistent way of keeping a steady amount of wisps as we move. We really want to have at least 1 wisp when we land, and that's because when you land from doing tricks, you don't get the wisp immediately. It plays a little animation before you get to boost. So you can compare, I'm going to do a trick here, land, and now I can boost. Compared to if I already had a boost, I would jump up, land, and immediately be able to boost. So that's why it's important to have wisps available to you when you're in the air, but this basic movement of boosting, jumping, building 1 wisp, and then landing again is going to be the fastest way to get through the game. But what when the level starts? We'll have 0 wisps. How do we build 2 wisps fast? And there's a little combo you can do which requires 5 inputs. Basically, you jump, you do a trick as fast as possible, you then delay until you're close to hitting the ground again, do another trick, cancel that into your double jump, and then do a final trick before hitting the ground again. So that looks like this. And that gives us 2 wisps. This is the fastest way of gaining 2 wisps, and we'll be doing it at the beginning of pretty much every level as the Wraith. Boom. Easy. That's everything for the in-game settings. The final thing I want to show you is the save file I'm using. So I'm using a save file that's set up to skip the initial cutscene of the game because that makes resetting a lot nicer. So I have this save file with 1:20 on the clock. This is saved right after the initial cutscene, and I can copy this into a new slot and start the run this way. There is a guide on speedrun.com for this game on how to set up this save file, and basically the time will be added manually afterwards for moderators, or you can use the auto splitter of the game and set your initial start time to 1:18 something, to basically automatically add the additional time you would have to spend watching the cutscene. So that's a really nice way to make resets easier. That's everything for the setup video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope it excited you a little bit for the run ahead. This game has a lot of really, really cool skips that I can't wait to show off to you. So I hope to see you there, and thank you for watching.